Hello, everyone. Today, let's talk about Chapter 1, Globalization. In this chapter, I'm going to cover three basic questions. First of all, what is globalization? Second, what makes globalization possible? And lastly, how we evaluate globalization. Let's look at the first question. What is globalization? Globalization refers to the trend towards a more interdependent or integrated global economic system. And there are two types of globalization. One is what we call globalization of markets. The other one is globalization of production. So for the first, globalization of markets, it's basically referred to firms now can sell to multiple international markets, not just sell in domestic market. And for globalization of production, it refers to, well, firms not just sell to different international markets, but they can also allocate their supply chain activities to different countries' locations based on the location's advantages. For example, you could allocate manufacturing to developing countries like Mexico, India, and China. You could allocate your design department to Japan, to France. You could move or create new research and development centers in Germany, in Japan. So the location where you allocate your supply chain activities around the world based on each location's advantage, this kind of behavior and activities, we call that globalization of production. Now, the second question, what makes globalization possible? Two factors behind globalization. Why don't we see globalization 200 years ago? Why don't we see the speed of globalization 100 years ago? It's because of these two factors. One is the declining trade and investment barriers. The other one is technological innovation or technological advance. So without modern technologies, PC, information technologies, transportation technologies, telecommunication technologies, without these, it's impossible for a firm to manage its globalized market, its globalized supply chain, in other words, globalized production. Just imagine if a message takes 2 months to be sent from New York to London, it's not efficient, right? So it is important that we have those modern technologies to make the management of globalized organization possible. And also the transportation technology, the improvement in transportation technology makes globalization or make sales and the movement of goods reasonable or reasonable enough for firms to sell to other markets, to source different resources, components from different locations. So technological advancement make globalization possible. But on the other hand, with all those modern technologies, why we don't see trade between certain countries? For example, in the last few decades, we don't see any trade or investment between US and Cuba. It's because of the trade embargo. So in other words, only with the modern technology, globalization is still not possible if there are high levels of trade and investment barriers. So the second important macro factor behind globalization is declining trade and investment barriers. Now the last question, is globalization good or bad? Well, there are a lot of debates going on this topic, and the debate covers job, income, environmental, labor policies, national sovereignty issues, and the fairness in terms of poor country and rich country who gets more benefits from globalization. So I will leave this portion of the chapter for you to review, and in this week's blog assignment, I would like to hear your voice and your opinion on this issue. Lastly, why we want to study international business and what is international business, given that this is our course. International business is any firm that involves in international trade or investment. And why we want to study it? Because managing an international business is quite different from managing a domestic firm. It's way more complicated. There are more diversified and different stakeholders. You're not only facing domestic, but also international suppliers, customers, business partners. You're also facing governments, not domestic, but also foreign governments. And there are different culture across different countries. There are different legal systems across different countries. When you conducting international transactions, there are currency issues. And so all these together make managing international business highly complicated. That's why we are learning this course, trying to gain basic understanding of globalization and international business.